Yeah, thank you, Alina. So hi, everyone. As Alina said, my name is Clément. I'm very happy to be here today with you. So as Alina said, indeed, the first part of this webinar will be mostly about talking at knowledge bases in general. We really want to provide you with some advice on how to get started with knowledge bases, how to organize your content, etc. And that's exactly what we're going to see in the next 30 minutes. So actually, we're going to go in 3 different steps. The first one will be actually why we should care about creating a knowledge base. Then we will look into a bit more in detail, basically, at what are the types of knowledge base that we usually see from our experience, from our expertise, what we see as XWiki SAS. And finally, in the last part, we will go back on basically what should be the process on your side to quickly create a base structure for a knowledge base. What are the things that you need to think about in order to have a properly working knowledge base that can actually work over time and be sustainable? So yeah, so that's kind of the plan for the next 30 minutes. Indeed, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them on the chat, and we will look into them afterwards. So yeah, so the first question is indeed why should we bother actually creating a knowledge base? Like, why is it important in nowadays company to have a silo, so a central place where we can store the information? Well, the easy answer, and probably the main reason, is that information nowadays is key. The competitive advantage that you may have in your company compared to any other competitor will come from the fact that you have developed some specific processes, some specific knowledge about something that makes you better at what you do. And for that, well, being able to have this knowledge of what can be your expertise is quite important. And we see that actually, even though this information, all this knowledge, this company that you have, even though it's very important, we see that nowadays it's not that there's not that much programs that take care of organizing your knowledge efficiently. We had so in 2016 actually HBR released a study that said that over the past 20 years the time that it takes to actually search for an information in a knowledge base went from got 50% more in terms of time. So if you used to have like around 10 minutes to find one information, now you are taking 15 minutes. And if you think about it in terms of the number of time that you search for something in a day or maybe in the year, it can quickly become huge. And the main reason for that, if we think about it, the main reason for that is probably due to the fact that we don't have, let's say, we don't have that kind of situation where the knowledge that is being stored in our companies is kind of growing and complexifying over time, which actually may add some complexity and maybe make the process of finding some knowledge a bit harder over time. So that's one important thing. Usually, from what we see as part of XWiki SAS, when we go look at how some of our clients tend to organize knowledge, what we usually see is that information, most of the time, it's either maybe not accessible, so it's basically stored somewhere and you have to search a lot for it, and you will have to take a look at, you will have to spend the time to search for the information, so it's already taking you time to find it, or maybe it's just not documented. So for example, the best example when we are looking for information not documented is the case where you have one specific team in a company, and in this team you have like one person which is like an expert in his field, he spent a lot of time, like he's been in the company for, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years, and he has this very, he has that expertise in his domain, which makes him do things very fast, and he's very efficient at it. However, maybe at some point this person might leave the company, go on vacation, maybe go on sick leave, and or maybe even retire. And you need to have a way to try to capitalize on the value that this expertise provides to your company, to whatever you're doing. It can be like the capacity of doing tasks very fast, or it can be some kind of a mindset that is applied in order to invent new products, etc. So it can apply to any kind of any range of use cases, I would say. And so yes, sometimes sometimes the information can also be not that easily accessible. The main point I'm thinking about, for example, right now is the case of usually the easiest way for a company to start sharing documents is to go through some kind of a file or folder sharing system, which is actually a form of knowledge base. It's important to think about it, and it's usually the easiest way to go because it's provided with most of the solutions today. And one thing that is important is that what we usually see is that so we will have a company that will organize, or a team, a specific team maybe, that will organize around one specific structure of files and folders that will organize their knowledge based on the structure. And maybe over time, the team itself will change. There will be new people, maybe the team will do different things, and the structure in itself will stay the same. And to the point that maybe 3 or 4 years later, the end result that we see is that the structure of files and folders that we had at the first place is not really relevant to the job that the team is doing nowadays. And so it's important to have this kind of method that allows to quickly kind of doing some refactoring of the information, making sure that it becomes more easily accessible once more, basically. Making sure that the organization that you are using corresponds to what your team does. And well, actually, that's something that we will more see in the third part of this presentation. So I don't want to go too much on it right now. So yeah, that's one point that is really, really key. And so in the end, putting up a knowledge base is actually trying to answer these questions, like trying to make sure that you have a good amount of knowledge that is stored within one place and that it is easily accessible. That you don't have to like spend hours looking for one information that you don't have because maybe because it's submitted by one or things like that, or maybe it's laying in an office document somewhere and you cannot really access it easily. So yeah, it's all about that. So now looking at the different types of knowledge bases, what we usually see is that we can consider that there are 3 types of knowledge bases in general. The first type, and we will go in these 3 types, no worries. The first type will be internal knowledge bases. So really focused on information that is important for your company in itself, and not really for external people, maybe clients or providers, etc. There is another type of knowledge base that we usually see also, which are external knowledge bases. So really here, instead of having something that is really focused on your company, you have a portal that is open, maybe a public website even, that helps to provide some information that is more general to the products or services that you provide. And finally, there is one last point, one last type, I would say, which is kind of a mix of the two, what I usually call the 2-in-1, which is the case where you mix a bit. You have one platform that is also used as a public as an external knowledge base, but also has some parts that are really specific to your company that only people in your company can see. And so we'll go in the three types in order to see what are the different specifics. And I'd like to share some examples of use cases with you regarding that. So yeah, so let's say let's start with internal knowledge bases. So when we think about internal knowledge bases, maybe the first element you may think about is the case of an intranet, and it actually would be quite a good option. It's one of the use that we see as a knowledge base that is one of the most important, I would say. No, when we talk about intranet, usually in the world of intranet, we usually distinguish two types of intranets, of intranet platforms. There is one type that is more called communication intranet, where it's a platform that is managed by one team within your company, and so usually marketing of HR, and the team is in charge of putting some news for the whole company to read. And so you have a homepage that is very nice looking, and you have kind of the blog of what happens in the company. And so this is communications intranet. Here, it's not really the focus of today's presentation because it's kind of limited as a knowledge base. However, we have another type which is collaborative intranet, which are actually knowledge bases. So it's one platform on which anyone can access and put some documents, create some pieces of knowledge, and maybe link them with other pieces of knowledge that have been created by other teams in the intranet in order to centralize all the knowledge of the company. And so, for example, the best example that we have for that case is the case of Amazon, which works like that, which has an intranet, which is a collaborative intranet, which is used worldwide by more than 20 million, more than 20 million person. It can work well at scale. However, we also have to consider that Amazon usually has a very specific culture that is related to how they handle knowledge. But it can also be used in more traditional, I would say, companies. So, for example, Score. So one of our clients is using a knowledge base to try to aggregate some legal documents in order to make sure that they are valid before actually providing them to the clients. Score is a tier one insurance company, so they are insuring the insurance companies more broadly. So before providing a contract to one insurance company, they need to make sure that this contract is valid legally, and they don't make any mistakes. And so they are using a knowledge base in order to answer that kind of need. And so maybe another example of use case for internal knowledge base would be when you want to have, you have an internal application and you want to provide some support on it, or maybe you have something like a support team and you want to have a frequent list of questions or issues that your clients may have that you want to answer. And so for that, the knowledge base can be very useful. And the idea in general is still the same. The idea is to have information that is centralized in one specific place, so that this in one specific, usually in one specific software, and the software takes care of actually making sure that you have quick access to this information, making sure that it does not take you that much time to access it. Okay. So this is the first point regarding internal knowledge bases. Second option is what I call external knowledge bases. So basically, it's platforms that are open to your clients or maybe to your providers, and that help you provide some more information regarding the products or the services that you provide. So, for example, you can provide a software And instead of having the documentation of your software being compiled as a PDF or a Word document that you provide for each new version of your software, you can have like one single knowledge center to which anyone can go and access the documentation regarding their version of the software. So this is one option. And usually what we see is that external knowledge bases at some point, depending on the type of public that you may want, it can go very far actually. And for example, we have one of our clients, which is HLS. So HLS is the office for the history of Switzerland. And well, they had this need of being able to build the encyclopedia of Switzerland and make it available as well publicly. And the encyclopedia in itself, if you think about it, it's a huge knowledge base. It's basically mostly historical, but it's still a knowledge base in itself. And in that case, there are some specifics that enters into the line consideration. So you have to think about how we can arrange the website so that it's easily navigable. If it's open to everyone, maybe you want to have a specific design for it that is that helps the navigation, but you want also the access to the information to be very easy for someone that knows the platform, etc. So tens of there are a lot of use cases, and it's hard to go around all of them. But these are kind of some examples of what you may find as an external knowledge base, something that is open to your clients. And so finally, there is one last point, which is which I usually call the two-in-one, which is basically the case when you have a knowledge base, one single service that is handling both your internal company information and also the external information that you provide to your customers. And actually, if you think about it, it has really some great added value, because what it means is that if you are, let's say that same thing, you are providing a product or a service, and the documentation for this, let's say, product relies on one unique knowledge base, which is accessible both from your internal team, which are actually building the product, building its new version, and also your clients, and you are both accessing the documentation for your product in one single place. And it helps you having it helps you focusing all the information that you have in one central area, and not trying to have some copies that are laying around, one copy that is dedicated to your client with some information, and another one that is more internal with another set of information. So it really allows to have this unique information silo that you can pick on. And also with this kind of model, you have the possibility to have your own part, which is more restricted to your company, on which you can put internal information that is more extended. And in any case, the idea is that for someone that is external, he will see whatever he has access to. So he will know a bit more about your product or your services. But on your side, if you are someone from the company, you will have access to more information that might be like more general. And it's actually so we'll see actually in the next part how we can think about whether or not we want to go into knowledge base that is more internal, external, or maybe a mix of the two. So yeah. And so, for example, we have an example for that case. One of our clients, which is artists, has this idea. Well, since I think 2018, they are using a knowledge base which does that, meaning that whenever someone has an issue on the software that they provide software for helping manufacturing wood. And whenever someone has an issue in their software, they can hit a key, which will open the knowledge base. And it's a website on which users can go and look into some documentation regarding whatever they want to see. And if someone is coming from Ardis, so an employee of Ardis comes, he has the possibility, of course, to update the content, contribute to it, but also has access to more internal information regarding the company. So it can be really different, like maybe the internal company blog, some information about marketing, etc. Not really related at first to the information that you want to provide to your clients. It can be really different, but the solution that you can choose to have your knowledge base based on can sometimes help you having different silos of information that are dedicated, maybe one silo that is open to everyone, one that is more private, and one that is even more restricted, for example. So yeah, usually when we look at the statistics of use for the knowledge base, so I've looked into the 40 clients that with which we work the most during the past year, and globally, roughly, we get around 60% of knowledge bases that are internal, so really for content that is not accessible from anywhere. Then we have some external knowledge bases, and then we have also a bit of a mix between the two. And you see that actually during the past 2-3 years, there has been kind of an increase in terms of need for having this mix between a knowledge base that is accessible only for some persons, like one part that is accessible to the public and one part that is accessible for just a subset of users, maybe users coming from the company. So that's very interesting to see how this evolves over the time. So let's go now on the last part for this first presentation, which is actually what are the different steps that you potentially could follow if you want to build and try to design a new knowledge base on your site. So we'll see these three steps in greater detail, but basically what we'll go through is first try to analyze what is the information that you want to put in your knowledge base, make sure that if it exists, think about how you want to design your knowledge base. Then we'll see how to structure it, and it's going to be the most important point. And then we'll look at make sure that the knowledge base evolves properly over the time. So how you can actually try to adapt it to the evolving needs of your company. So first, analyze and research. So the goal for that is that yes, you want to set up a knowledge base, and that's a first good step. However, you need to know what to put in it. You need to know if the information that you want to put is already there, if it already exists. Does it exist in one single format? Is it easy to import maybe in the software that you've chosen? And you also need to know if the information does not exist, how do you want to plan to create it? How do you want to organize it in the end? One thing that is also important is that usually what we see is that for starting a knowledge base, you can start with a very small structure. It's usually very simple to start with a small structure. Say, okay, I want to put that information, and go. You can put it directly. However, if you plan to use your knowledge base on the long run, what I would recommend on my side is that you try to think about the future usage of your knowledge base. And so, for example, I have quite a story with one of our clients with which we are currently working with, which is the Virage Group. So it's a French company that is providing software for project management, and we are working with them in order to set up the knowledge base, which will be mostly open to anyone for now. But as we are working on setting up this knowledge base, we are also thinking about how to organize the information for the long term. Like if we want to have one part that will be more private, maybe if we want to have a part of the knowledge base that will be for another project or things like that. And it's important to keep that the end structure that you want in mind because it will already allow you to plan a bit how you want to organize your information, so that once you add more information more and more, it becomes easier to manage in the end. The second part for building your knowledge base will be to structure and tailor. And it's, as I said, it's actually the most important part to me. The idea is that the knowledge that, well, usually when we think about knowledge, to me, when I think about knowledge, the first thing that comes to my mind is, for example, something like a file or a Word document, for example. And when you think about a Word document, it's like a title and it's the content of the document itself. There is no, well, it's just that in itself, but it's already quite powerful. The thing is that nowadays, with the solutions that exist on the market, you have the possibility to do more with your content. So, for example, if you want to build a knowledge base that will have, well, for example, one of the features of the knowledge base will be that you want to store all the meeting notes that you are doing each week with one team. Then you have the possibility, you should have the possibility to actually be able to say, okay, I want to store some meetings. But in my meeting note, what do I want? So I want to have a title, maybe. I want to have the date of the meeting. It would be interesting. I want to have the participants, maybe, of the meeting, and maybe, well, the content of the meeting itself, of course. And so by doing this reflection on most of the types of documents that you want to put in your knowledge base, you will have the possibility to basically structure them and help a bit, all in all, the addition of new content to the knowledge base. Let me explain. Usually, when we have one of the greatest advantages of this method is that when you will have someone that wants to contribute new content to your knowledge base, so remember, the goal is that everyone can contribute and help and add new content. The fact that the addition of content goes through a kind of a structured manner. So you want to add a new meeting note, like, okay, what is the date, what is the person, etc., etc. The fact that we approach the addition of content in a more structured manner, instead of having just a one page that shows up in which you have to type whatever you feel that is interesting here. It helps with the writer's block. So the fact that people are kind of blocked with creating new content in your knowledge base. And also, depending on the software that you choose, the structuration of the data that you may have created can help in navigating through the different contents of the knowledge base, in accessing the contents a bit more quickly. And it's actually something that I want to show you in the second part of the webinar. I'm going to show you an example of what we did with SNCF, which is helping with the manufacturing, so with the reparation of some trains. SNCF, if you don't know, it's the main railroad operator in France. And we help them setting up a knowledge base that allows them to quickly access, really very quickly access, some information about issues that could be in trains. And we use this structured data in order to do so. Finally, last point, which is last but not least, actually, once your knowledge base is in place, so after these two previous points, analyzing content and structuring it, you are ready to go basically. You can start iterating and start providing more content. However, you still need to make sure that over time, your knowledge base stays kind of in a kind of healthy position, I would say. Meaning that the content is still updated, it's still relevant, and the organization of your knowledge base kind of corresponds to the organization of your team or your organization in general. And for that, you need to have some way to make sure that the content that is being put is still accurate and the users are not lost within your knowledge base. For that, usually what exists is that either the tool that you are using has an integrated review analytics application, that allows you to see, okay, this page has been seen that hundred, that much times, and this other page has not been seen that much, etc. Or there might be other solution that plug in to third-party analytics platform. So it's a bit like it would be a bit like when you manage your corporate website. You have one external platform that does the monitoring of the usage of your knowledge base. So we are getting to the end of this first presentation. If you have three things that would be very important to keep in mind from what I've just said over the past 30 minutes, I would think that it's mainly what we saw in the part 3. It's when you want to build a knowledge base, the first thing to think about is really the usage that you want. So what is the kind of content that you want to put in your knowledge base? How do you want it to be organized? Do you plan to have it open to the public at some point? Or maybe do you want to have it only closed, etc.? Think about this organization, maybe think about the future, what you want to end up with your knowledge base. Then, once you are set with that, pay really close attention to how you structure your content. And maybe it might not seem like a lot, but it is. Really, it's what makes the difference in terms of productivity to access the information within the knowledge base. And finally, once you're all set with these 2 points, make sure that you can handle your knowledge base a bit like what you do with your public website. Basically, make sure that it's up to date. Make sure that it stays interesting for as your public website will stay interesting for your clients, etc. So I think that's the end of this first presentation. Thank you for listening to me. Now I think that we can go to the questions. Read some of the questions that are in the shared notes, and then we can try to iterate on that. So the first question is from, I'm going to take them one by one. So the first question was from Andrea. I have users that would need to access my knowledge base from multiple countries. How can I make it multilingual? So usually this is indeed one thing that you need to think about, and it's part of the analyze the type of content that you want to put in your knowledge base. You need to know if the content that you want to put is multilingual or not, or will it become multilingual at some point. And for that, at some point, you will also need to find the solution that works the best for you, for your knowledge base. And we need to also check if it supports that kind of feature that is handling multilingual language. Usually, it can be implemented in various different ways. So it really depends on the solution that is being chosen. Question 2, does SharePoint could be considered as a knowledge base or maybe internal? Yes, definitely. So the SharePoint, depending on your usage, it can be used in order to simply share files, a bit like what I've talked in the first part of the presentation, which was so having this structure of files and folders. And in that case, you need to actually make sure that this structure stays correct over the time, and you need to actually spend some time to work on the structure. And it has also some features that to me could be close to what we consider as an internal, as an intranet, maybe a communication intranet most of the time, from what I've seen on SharePoint. But yes, definitely, it can be considered as a knowledge base without any question.
Mo, I wanted to intervene here.
Yep.
So this is Ludovic Dubos. I'm the CEO and founder of XWiki. So one thing to keep in mind is that SharePoint is heavily pushing people to use Office documents as a way to share information. And so so when you do that, one issue is that you're making the content a bit less accessible and more difficult both to read and more difficult to participate on. History is more difficult to analyze or to look at. And so these aspects of sharing through Office documents makes it a more difficult to use knowledge base.
Yeah, we indeed don't have this kind of structuring capability as we talked about.
Yeah, and when I made presentations of XWiki, and when it comes to make and explain the difference between sharing information in a wiki compared to sharing information using files, the example I've been using a lot in the past is that well, the Word file, the Office document, is an analogy to the letter and the diligence that was used a long time ago. So people were writing letters, giving them to somebody for delivering, and responding to that letter, and basically using this as a way to share information when we have tools like the internet is not rethinking the way information should be managed in the internet age. And working together on a document, being able to structure it, to add metadata to it, being able to have a history, to know who has edited it, who's participating in it, who is commenting it, and the ability to navigate a document, navigate from one page to another, and searching for it efficiently, is what it means to rethinking how to structure information in the information age. And this is what makes the difference between tools like XWiki, wikis in general, and tools like SharePoint, which are still pushing a lot of users to still work with Office documents.
Indeed. Thank you, Ludovic. So if we continue with the question, I think that we will have time to look at maybe one or two questions more before the break. Let's take question 6. So is there a method to follow for creating a good structure of the information? Yes, indeed. So it will highly depend on the content that you want to put in your knowledge base, of course. But most of the time you have to think about the types of document, well, the types of information that you want to put in. Let's say, for example, meeting notes. Maybe you want to have some legal documents and that are structured in a certain way. So you can do one structure for these legal documents and another structure for something else, etc., etc., etc. And then, depending on the tool that you are using, you might have also some integrations that allow you to say, okay, this legal document will behave in one way that another will not behave. But approaching the question in the term of thinking about how what is the kind of information that I'm going to put in my knowledge base is kind of the first step for structuring the information. So let me see where we. Okay, maybe I think that we can go. We can just have maybe a 5-minute short time between the two presentations, and then we'll be able to continue. Question 7 and 8, maybe we can discuss it afterwards, after the presentation, or by mail if you want, and we can go back on that. So thank you.